What about the present management structure then, John, and what happens to Dave and Robbie and what's got the sports scientists as well?
Yeah, obviously Rob and Paul will work with us to assess what we've got, but I think in truth we've got a structure that's very fit for purpose. They're good staff, they know the roles, but of course we'll go through that with Rob and Paul.
How does it work, you two, as joint managers? Now, I know that you've done it at Ilkeston and you've done it at Boston. How does it work? Who picks the team?
Both of us. It's
what's the final say?
Both of us. That's why.
If you disagree on who's,
I think you could turn around and ask Mark behind you. He knows how we work. It took a little longer than we thought to come up with that question today, because that's what we're always asked. It's not the conventional way of doing things, but from my point of view and for Paul's point of view, if it always worked with an assistant and a first team manager, nobody would ever get the sack. So why is this different? Yes, it's different, but why is it not right? It doesn't make it right or wrong because it's a joint managership or number one or number two. Ultimately, we discuss possibly every minor detail and major detail that is involved with picking a team, individuals, form, attitude, desire. Everything is analysed by Paul and I. We analyse everything, and we keep the lines of communication open. There's an old saying, obviously, 2 heads are better than one, and if you've got a number one, he's always going to have the final say. So ultimately, are you getting a broader spectrum of ideas? With us, it works.
Who has the final say?
Both of us.
You do disagree on a position.
We both have the final say. Well, yes, we disagree.
Well, how do you resolve that then?
We talk about it.
Yeah, we talk it through. What Rob said. We've discussed this. Obviously, it's not the first time we've been asked this question. And when we're playing against an opposition, we'll both write a team down, and I would suggest they're very similar to begin with. And there might be 1 or 2 positions where we may have different players down. Then we talk about the reasons why, and then we understand each other, and eventually we come up with a decision.
It's really not an ego thing, where one of us has to have the final say. It's not, neither of us are that egotistical where you think, right, I have to have the last say. It never develops to an argument, because you have to be, you have to analyse it and work out which is the best, not for Paul or I, but for the 11 players that are going out on the pitch, and to give the best performance that's possible for the fans to get the result.
And at what point in your lives, playing together, did you realise you had this commonality?
Well, I don't think it was so much when we were playing. Obviously, we played in the back four together at Rotherham for a number of years, but it wasn't until we went to Ilkeston and we were thrown into the situation, and I think sometimes the more you think about things, the less you do. We were thrown into a situation and it worked. We're very different characters, as I'm sure you'll find out along the route, but ultimately for me, this is something we don't have to think about too much. We both have our ideas on things, and ultimately they result in what has so far been a successful management career. So that will continue if we don't change anything too drastically than we've been doing in the last 2.5, 3 years.
I just feel that we make better decisions as a pair, rather than maybe one having a final say perhaps earlier in discussions that a first team manager and assistant would have. We feel we go in more depth with things and decisions, and as I say, ultimately we feel that we make the right decision. Now, yeah, of course, over the period we've been managers, you do make mistakes. But as record suggests, we haven't made too many, which is obviously the aim.
What's your playing style? Do you have one?
Whatever it takes to win a game of football. Whether, again, it comes down to the staff that you have on the playing side of things. You've got to have a plan A, a plan B and a plan C. We've obviously identified the fact that this team can play some good football. We also need to identify the fact of, the teams aren't going to come to Grimsby and say, oh, it's a nice ground, we'll let Grimsby get hold of the ball and play some really attractive football. We obviously know that the teams are going to come here and raise their game 20%. Now, everybody at the club needs to realise now that it's not a Football League club, and teams are going to come here and want to beat Grimsby Town because of the stature of it. So, if it takes good football, if it takes fight and desire and a drive to do what it takes to win the game of football, then that's the bigger your armoury, the more fierce that you'll be.
I mean, in terms of formation, his first promotion was one playing 4-3-3. We started out with that at Boston. We didn't feel it was quite working. Changed for 4-4-2, and that's the formation that we've generally played with slight variations. So straight away, I think we know a couple of systems there. Also, won a cup final playing 3-4-3. Sorry. So it does depend on the players, and again, we will have to have a look at it. We saw the team last night, obviously playing the traditional 4-4-2, and as we said, there were some good things and other things that need to be worked on. So we're open-minded, but we certainly like to attack. But at the same time, if you look at his record, we have built it on a good defensive record, and obviously if you can get a balance of the two, you're going to have half a chance.